arguments over gun control and mass public shootings are nonsensical because the evidence is here. In this video, receipts posted in the description box. Armed citizens carrying firearms consistently save lives, and the statistics are overwhelming and irrefutable. Between 2014 and 2023, 35% of all shootings, including those in so-called gun-free zones, were stopped by armed citizens with concealed carry permits or constitutional carrying in places where guns are legally allowed. So places where we're talking about outside gun-free zones, the success rate for the armed citizens stopping mass public shooters climbs from 35% to 51.5%, becoming a clear majority. Put plainly, in locations where citizens are allowed to fight back, we do. And we stop mass shootings more often than not. The numbers go further. Armed citizens have actually stopped more mass public shootings than law enforcement. In one study reviewing incidents, armed citizens stopped 180 attackers, while law enforcement stopped 158. That means that armed citizens, normal people, lawfully carrying firearms, we're talking about a 14% higher rate of stopping mass public shootings. Here's something else that's interesting. 86% of mass public shootings take place in gun-free zones. Think about how open and wide the country is. Think about all the land in the United States. Gun-free zones account for, I would bet, 1% or less of the land in the United States. Probably much less than 1%. Yet, they account for 86% of the mass public shootings. 86%. That is not some sort of pro-gun number. That's the anti-gun number that the Washington Post and others have referenced. The pro-gun number is somewhere between 95 to 98% of mass public shootings take place in gun-free zones. Take your pick, folks. 86%, 95, I don't care. I'll use 86. 86% of the mass public shootings take place in less than 1% of the land in the United States. What do you think is going on? The lesson is unmistakable. The presence of armed citizens provides immediate life-saving intervention. The contrast becomes sharper when we start comparing outcomes. Research shows that armed citizens reduce the number of people killed in active shooter incidents by 49%. 49% less people die in mass public shootings when armed citizens respond and fight back. Even independent studies with no Second Amendment credentials or affiliation who fact-checked this and pushed back and said no. They said it was closer to 30% reduction in casualties when armed citizens intervene. By any standard, that is a massive decrease in innocent lives lost. This effectiveness doesn't come with some sort of extra risk to the public like anti-gunners love to pretend. In fact, the fatality risk is 16.5% for officers engaging armed mass public shooters versus just about 1% for armed citizens. Not only are armed citizens dramatically more effective in stopping the attacker, saving lives, but also doing it with far less danger to themselves. More striking still, in a study of 531 mass public shooting incidents, not a single armed citizen killed an innocent by mistake. We're talking a victim that happened to be in the area, another concealed carrier, or a responding law enforcement officer. 0 killed. Meanwhile, law enforcement responding to mass public shootings killed at least 2 good guys, including one armed citizen who was mistaken for the suspect. Armed citizens not only save more lives, but they're less likely to cause or contribute to any collateral tragedy. It's not only deaths that are reduced. Armed citizens cut the number of wounded in active shooter incidents by about 2.9 to 3.8 people per attack. Further, states with constitutional carry laws, where citizens may carry without a permit, also see statistically significant reductions in innocents being wounded, preventing an additional 1.1 to 1.6 people from being wounded per incident. Effectiveness is also measured by how often criminals are neutralized. In 75% of incidents where armed citizens confront violent perpetrators, so we're not just talking about mass public shootings, we're just looking in general, the criminals are hit. One major study of 418 confrontations found that 315 attackers were stopped by a sudden onset of lead exposure. The conclusion is obvious. Armed citizens are not some sort of hypothetical deterrent that anti-gunners love to play down. They are consistently effective. In fact, the front line and the best emergency responders to put down active threats when seconds matter and police are minutes away. But none of this won't matter to your anti-gun mother-in-law or in-laws or whoever the fact it might be that's out there. They're gonna say, look, mass public shootings, this is an American problem. Except it isn't. The wider global picture underscores this point. From 1998 to 2015, a comprehensive study reviewed thousands of mass public shootings worldwide. The results were devastating to the narrative that America is some sort of unique wasteland plagued by gun violence. The United States accounts for less than, according to that study, all linked in the description box down below, 1.15%. 1.15% of all mass public shootings, 1.49% of related deaths, and 2.2% of all attacks, all while making up 4.6% of the world's population. So as you can see, the US is well below average if we're just looking at the incident rate and the people. But that's not even a fraction of the story. You need to consider this in the context of firearm ownership, because after all, sometimes it's just the guns, right? American citizens, not the military, not law enforcement, you and I, own about 400 million civilian-held firearms as of 2017. That accounts for about 47%. 47%, we're so close to half people, but 47% of the world's privately owned guns are here in the United States, owned by citizens. And 40% of all guns on the planet, civilian or government, are owned by American citizens. And by the way, that's the 2017 number. Now today, we're pushing over 500 million, meaning that nearly 50% of all firearms are owned by American citizens. Yet despite all of that, we account for 1.15% of all mass public shootings. Think about that. Do you still think that more guns equals more crime? Well, try this on. Rankings make the picture sharper. Among 97 countries who record and report mass shootings, the United States ranks 64th. That's 6-4 in per capita frequency and 65th in per capita murder rate. Mass shootings have increased more dramatically worldwide than in the United States, meaning America's share of such attacks is actually shrinking over time. If widespread gun ownership were inherently dangerous, the US should be leading, surging way out in front of all these rankings, but we're not. Even firearm homicides don't line up with the guns cause homicide myth. The United States usually ranks 18th to 22nd worldwide in firearm homicide rates, nowhere near the top. And that's despite the United States being the only country in the world with more than one gun per person. Switzerland has about 0.4 guns per person. Switzerland ranks 68th in firearm homicide rate. If guns were the problem, United States would be number 1 and Switzerland would be number 2. Meanwhile, the countries with the highest homicide rates average just about 6.5 guns per 100 people. That's 0.065 guns per person. That means that they have a 16 times higher homicide rate than the United States and an eye-popping 555 times higher firearm homicide rate than Switzerland. These countries also share another common factor: far stricter gun control than either the United States or Switzerland. One conclusion that you could draw from this, statistically, it's not the guns. Folks, you down the lens watching this, if you know someone who needs to see this, post this on your social media, share this around, tag your both pro-gun friends who will do the same, and especially your anti-gun folks in your life who need to be confronted with the truth. What other big pro-gun statistics you would like to see in this video if I make another one like it? Comment down below. I always love seeing those comments. We're going to close out with our ever popular quote of the day. This one comes from Italian Renaissance thinker Plutarch, who once said, quote, "The mind is not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled." I hope this video did something to kindle your fire, and I hope that you will pass the flame on to others. Have a good one. Take care. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.